Now, Dan, you talk about this a bit in your book, Superforecasting. Tell us more about how this psychology actually can help somebody looking forward in attempts to forecast things.
Yeah. Well, super forecasting, the title comes from an enormous research program undertaken by my co-author, Phil Tetlock, who's a very eminent psychologist at Wharton, and one of the leading researchers in the field of forecasting. And over the course of 4 years, in a intelligence community sponsored tournament, Phil had thousands of volunteers. In fact, over 4 years, over the course of 4 years, more than 20,000 volunteers were involved. And they made forecasts about big, important geopolitical and economic events, like will Greece default? How will China's GDP do in the fourth quarter? That sort of thing. Big, difficult questions. And at the end of the 4 years, with so many people making so many forecasts, they were able to figure out that there was a very small number of people who had excellent forecasting skill. And they were consistently excellent, which tells you you're looking mostly at skill, not luck. And so then the question is, well, what is it about them that makes them so good? Well, after what I've just discussed about the importance of catching and correcting your psychologically induced mistakes, you won't be surprised to hear that one of the very first things that's so important about these super forecasters is that they are slow, cautious, careful, rigorous thinkers. The people who sort of, they have an immediate strong sense that they have of what the answer is, and they're fixed, they're determined. Maybe they go out and get some new information to support that belief, but they stick with that, and ultimately that's their final answer. That's what most people tend to do. That's what our psychology impels us to do. These super forecasters do exactly the opposite. They basically set that initial intuitive response aside, and then they look exactly at the forecasting question. They break it down very carefully. They break it down and say, how can I possibly answer this? How do I research the problem? What are the information components that I need? And then they proceed step by methodical step. It's a very slow, painful, rigorous, demanding process, but it works. And what's interesting is when you look at how super forecasters make their forecasts, which are demonstrably excellent. I mentioned George Soros earlier in the interview. If you know the writing of George Soros, it's very, very similar. Basically, George Soros, I'm sure that if he had competed in this tournament, he too would have been a super forecaster.